Welcome back, everybody, to the back nine of the first round 2017 Bad Rock Open. We'll kick things off with hole 10, 381 feet. This hole calls for a left to right shot, and you're hoping that it sticks on the green and doesn't roll all the way back down the hill. We had some entertainment while we were waiting on the card to clear ahead of us. A cricket match. These guys are out here quite often playing their games. Chris had a really good start to the tournament. 6 under after 9 holes.
Good roll.
And it is short of the basket, but it gets a friendly roll towards the basket. He is well inside the circle. Scott with the forehand shot. This is the routine shot. This is what you see most frequently out of right-handed players. But that is an unfortunate outcome. It rolls all the way down the hill. Joe was really working that shot. He started it with a turnover, and it didn't have enough to get back. That wind was not helping him, pushing him left. And Jordan also with the forehand, he starts that one out way too far left. No hope of it getting back to the basket. Easy approach though. He is up there for his 3. And Scott doing what he intended to do, just right by the basket. And all you're thinking is, don't roll down the hill, please. That was an aggressive run by Joe. And Chris released that nose down, never had a chance. The putt is a bit unnerving, regardless of where you are, unless you're tapping in. No change in the score after hole 10. Everybody getting their pars. Hole 11. First, we must exit the hole, get out into the open, and the basket sits on a mound. The wind can affect your outcome on this hole. There's a valley nearby. Pretty straightforward shot.
I wanted to be left of the basket.
Chris sawed it off a little bit. He did say he wanted to be on the left side, just not that far left. Scott did not put all of it onto that one, and he is short of the basket. Looking at a long putt. Really want to get out of this one because the brush on either side, if you don't exit, if you hit a tree, it's very thick, as you will see here after, well, he got fortunate. He is out away from the brush. It is extremely thick, just 10 feet behind him. And just a little too much turnover on that disc for it to fly and glide towards the basket. He's left with a very long shot, and he wisely lays up. Very nice putt by Scott. Moves to 1 under. And he is getting this back 9 started better than he did the front. Joe just outside 20 feet, closer to 25. Uphill, not high enough. That's a good putt by Chris. These holes, these baskets that are sitting on mounds, and when the conditions are very windy, it is one of the hardest putts you will face. Because you know what can go wrong. There's so much. If you blow past the basket, it's traveling a good distance before it comes to rest, leaving you a tough comeback. Hole 12, probably the sketchiest fairway. It is not easy to hit. It's very narrow, and you have to travel a good distance, 267 feet. It is set on the shortest pin placement on this hole, but it's still not an easy birdie. And Chris navigates the fairway. He had just been commenting on how this hole had been eating his lunch lately. But he gets down there on the drive. That's a good shot by Scott. You get past the first 3/4 of this hole, that row, those 2 rows of trees, and you're happy. Joe getting down there as well. That's 3 good shots. Jordan starts that one on the right. Unfortunately, he had a little turnover and kicked him far right. He's out in the open, and he just pulls it right again, clips some of the brush on the right side, and drops him short. That was a nice bid by Jordan. Had good pace control, good height, just a little right. And Joe gets that 35-footer in the bucket. Nice deuce. You are always ecstatic to get a deuce on hole 12. Another great deuce by Chris. Moves him up to 8 under par for the tournament. Jordan settles for a 4. And Scott taps in for his 3. Hole 13, I'm going to show you both sides of this hole. You can approach it, if you're a right-handed player, you can approach it with a hyzer around the bushes, but then you also have, the way this hole was really designed is to play down this middle area with a turnover, but the fairway is very narrow. The difficulty on the right side, if you're going with the hyzer, is going long. It's a relatively short hole, 235 feet, so it's easy to go long, out of bounds, into the bushes, give yourself a really tough up and down for par.
Everybody, probably.
Chris is going with the turnover flex forehand shot, and he hits one of the trees in the fairway. I like Chris's shot selection because it allows the disc, once it clears the fairway, to fade back up the hill, whereas his straight hyzer shot would have faded back right and probably not reached a good proximity to the basket for him to get an easy 2. Joe's spike hyzer really hugged the tree line, and you do want to hug the tree line. It's just, you got to flirt with danger. Jordan executing the turnover very well.
That's what I was going for.
And that is a near deuce from about 100 feet away. Not sure if he wanted to do that. It looked perhaps like it was going to be an approach that went long, but still right on line. Great shot by Chris. And Scott almost went long. You see how close he was to the bushes down there. That's the danger of going with the hyzer route. If you don't cut in and you're in there, it's a lot of trouble. Jordan's great shot unfortunately ran a little bit long. He is slightly in the bush, facing a 30-foot putt. And he leaves that one way too short. Great putt by Joe. That shot that hugged the tree line got him to that spot, and he cards the only birdie of the group. And a good cleanup by everybody else. As a righty, you definitely want this hole. It's not an overly difficult one to get. Hole 14. This one could almost be cataloged as a par 4, but it's a tricky shot to be able to get in the circle for the putt. It's wide open on the left side, and then it cuts in hard on the right, but the difficulty is that the basket is tucked in close to the tree line once you make the corner. It takes a very risky shot, very risky approach if you're a right-handed player to give yourself a chance at 2. you get a 2 on this hole, you're getting a stroke on the field. There are very few 2s on hole 14.
Way too far.
Chris just overpowers his shot. He has the lefty advantage on this hole, but didn't quite take advantage of it. Scott tried to go with a turnover, and he did not get over on the shot, and it bailed on him. And Jordan flips that driver. I believe that's the same driver he used on hole 5 when he flipped it on the drive. It is a blue one, and he is in trouble in that right side. Excellent approach by Scott. And Jordan's not so bad. He's out. He has a look at it, and he is way short. It looks like he clipped something on the way up. Killed all his power. He landed deep inside the brush, and he did not get out. He had a second shot that didn't do much. Almost made it all the way out, but just didn't. Joe is in the brush, in the trees, and he had to pitch out. Chris just laying up, ready to go to the next hole. His opportunity for the deuce was off the tee, and he did not capitalize. Joe to save par has a 45 footer downhill. Leaves it high. Now this is Jordan's 4th shot. And he is unhappy with the 5. Really the one thing you have to avoid when you're in from the tee is going right, and that is a result of going right, is you can get yourself a 5. Joe will get a bogey, and Chris and Scott, with their good approaches, will walk away with par. Hole 15, 307 feet. There are 2 routes. You have the left side route, there has the pond you have to deal with, or the right side route, which has more trees, and it's just a more difficult shot to execute, but it is the safer one because you are avoiding going anywhere near that water. The basket sits on a cliff on a little hillside. Chris going on the left side. Does not go in the water. He hits a tree that prevents you from getting any closer to the basket, but he didn't ricochet him back into the water, so very fortunate for Chris. And Scott just doesn't get out of there. But he doesn't have anything in front of him. He should be okay for his approach to the basket for a par. And Joe thought he was already out of there. It's a tough line to hit. It's quite narrow, more narrow than it appears on video. Jordan continues to pull his shots right. He's very consistent right now, but unfortunately they're all going right. That is an excellent forehand get out of trouble shot for Jordan. He is up and putting by the circle. Joe and Scott will face similar shots. They landed within 10 feet of one another. That's a great shot by Scott. You see how close Chris came to being in the water. If you don't clear those trees, you run the risk of ricocheting right back into it. Really good save by Jordan. Joe saves his 3. Scott and Chris will have tap-ins. Hole 16, another nail biter. So you have to get out through that skinny gap. It's very difficult. You have the pond right on the left side, so any kick left has the risk of going in the water. Any kick right, and you're basically just throwing right back onto the fairway, just a little pitch out to be able to advance. So the first 120 feet are critical. That's all you really want to do is get out of there and try and get your par. Even if you get all the way up the fairway to where you're pin high, you're still faced with a 45-foot putt at least to get the deuce.
It's probably the only fragrance I do like.
Scott pulls his left, but he is safe on the left side. He is not in the water. Joe contemplating the forehand before changing his mind. And he threw a understable disc, which is a good idea when you're going uphill. He put a little more power on it than he intended to, but he is happy to be up there and out of danger. That is out of bounds in the water for Jordan. He's still pulling his shots just right of where he needs them to go. And this is sitting 3. Good forehand roller up the hill. It's going to give him an angle to attack the basket, the green, I should say. Scott didn't put enough air on that one. He's going to be well short of the green. Not what Chris had intended. Ends up going in too early into the thick brush. Joe lining up a patent pending approach for his second shot. Very well executed. He will have a nice easy 3. And everybody else is very envious of him. Chris gets out. He didn't have much. He had to fight through some brush. And from 60 feet out, Scott is short of the basket. Scoots past it. Chris gets a bogey for. Now Jordan has this for a double bogey 5. That is a good putt, but unfortunately it's his second double bogey in the last 3 holes. Hole 17, 299 feet. Just nice and open on the left side. Right hand, backhand hyzers will have to deal with the tree on the right side. It's more of a hyzer flip shot, straight shot if you're a right-handed player. Joe opts for a forehand, and it works out pretty good. He's in the circle on that drive. Chris going with the wide left approach, and he's got some tall grass to clear. Does not look like he cleared it. He is in the tall grass. Robbed him of a skip. Scott going with the forehand. Now these can skip away, but this one does not. It had no speed to it. Unfortunately, he is short. There's that blue disc of Jordan's again. He flips it, hits the branches on the right, and gets a very unfortunate roll. That was an aggressive go. Probably a half go, half layup attempt for Jordan. Now Chris is a very accurate putter, and that was not his best effort, but it is a fast green. Close but no cigar. He is looking at a 12, 15 foot comeback. And Joe from about 25 feet for his deuce. Cuts through the chains. Looks like it was on the right side. A little too much hyzer on the shot. Just knifed right through the chains. So everybody getting their par on hole 17. Hole 18, 324 feet, plays longer than that. It is uphill. You really want to avoid that gnarly bush on the left. That was seemingly a very good line by Joe, but that disc, it's a beefy one. It started fading hard left. Powerful side arm by Chris. He is inside 20 feet. Scott getting up the hillside, clips that little tree. He's looking at a 60-foot putt at least. Jordan clips the same tree. And looks like that will do it for Jordan's round. His job is done. He is looking forward to the next round. He had a really good front nine and a disappointing back nine. He is not happy with his performance on the back nine. He'll be looking to correct that next round. Scott also is up and done. And that was an excellent putt by Joe. We all thought on this side that he had made it. I had to zoom in to realize that no, that disc is not in the basket. It looked like such a make. We were very surprised that it didn't stay. Our only clue was Joe's reaction. And Chris's putt catches the left side of the basket. Gets his birdie, only birdie of the group, climbs to 8 under par. Scott will tap in his par. Jordan will tap in his par, as well as Joe. Chris goes into the clubhouse with an 8 under par. Joe 5 under, very close behind him. Good round by Chris and Joe. Join us for the final round of the 2017 Bad Rock Open, where Chris Clemons, Jake Lazo, Arturo Villarreal, and Joe Hesting will be competing to be the champion.